that behavior, but since Timothy was being unreasonable, she was glad Patience saw it her way. She threw her arms around her sister-in-law. "Thank you, Patience. I promise I won't cause any trouble." Patience smiled. "Of course you won't." She glanced at the barn and then at Ruby. "Will you keep an eye on the Kinner while I go talk to him? They're down for their naps, but Tobias might wake up in a few minutes." "Of course." She opened the screen door, careful to make sure it didn't slam behind her, and went inside. She loved her nephews and hadn't seen them for a few months, not since Timothy and his family last visited Lancaster. One of the perks of coming here was that she could spend time with the little boys. Ruby took her suitcase upstairs. Timothy's house wasn't that big, and she had been here a few times before, although the last time had been 3 years ago. She started to set the suitcase on the spare room bed, but then paused. Should she unpack now? Despite Patience's assurances, she wasn't sure if Timothy would relent. Lord, change his mind, please. She set the suitcase on the floor, making sure she was quiet. She slipped off her shoes and went into the hallway. She'd passed Tobias and Luke's room a few moments earlier. Maybe she should peek in on them. When it came to children, she was confident, and at 20, she'd had plenty of babysitting experience. When she looked inside their room, she smiled. Oh, her nephews were so sweet. Luke, of course, was still in a crib, and Tobias lay on a small bed. A wooden baby gate stretched across the threshold, much like the one she and Timothy had when they were young. Of course, Timothy never tried to escape his crib or his bedroom, like Ruby had. She was the reason for the baby gate. As their mother had said time and time again, Ruby had been the difficult child. She bit her lip and stepped back from the bedroom, not wanting to wake her sleeping nephews. Her heart pinched, but she ignored the familiar feeling, as she had so many times over the years. It wasn't as if her parents were wrong. Problems did seem to follow her no matter what she did, and despite her best intentions. But she was an adult now, and something had to change. Or rather, someone. She had to learn how to be better, to be more acceptable, to be like Timothy and everyone else she knew. And the way to start that transformation was to get married. At least that was what Ruby had decided. There was a bit of a glitch, though. Although she was ready to find a husband, the single men in her community weren't exactly lining up to propose. That also hurt her feelings a bit, but she had somewhat of a reputation back home. Not a salacious one, though. Just the thought of having that type of reputation made her face heat. But she'd been in enough scrapes and caused enough complications that the men stayed far away. The lack of matrimonial contenders sparked the idea of coming to Birch Creek. It was a thriving community. It was also full of young men who knew her only as Timothy's little sister. She fully intended to use their lack of awareness to her advantage. She slid down the wall next to the children's bedroom until she was seated on the floor. Then she pulled her knees to her chest, resting her chin on them. She'd had plenty of time to think on the bus ride here from Lancaster, plenty of time to puzzle out how she was going to land a husband. Also plenty of time to suspect that this might not be the best way to go about it. But she had never been one to sit back and wait for something to happen. Perhaps that tendency also needed further consideration, but right now she was too excited about her plan. After all, it was the first time she had a plan about anything. If she followed it, she was certain she would have a potential husband candidate by Christmas. Or at least a date. Maybe I should concentrate on that first, she thought. Ruby smiled. Yes, she would prove to herself and everyone else that she had finally matured into a responsible, sensible adult. They would no longer see her as a walking disaster, leaving chaos in her wake. It was time to introduce the new Ruby Glick to the world. Timothy grabbed a pitchfork and threw some straw into an empty stall. The horses were out in the pasture, which was a good thing because they would have experienced a surprise straw shower. Never mind that he just put down fresh bedding that morning, and he was creating a new mess to clean up. Patience walked in, but he ignored her. Finally, she said, "Timothy, you can't turn Ruby away."